the top 10 hardest Mario Kart Wii tracks, in my opinion, by Modi1-4. Number 10. Donkey Kong Summit or Donkey Kong Snowboard Cross. So for this list, I'm going to use parts of the course to explain why they're really hard. So let's begin with Donkey Kong Summit. So this first part of DK Summit isn't really too hard. It's really after this segment where things start getting a little difficult. So the first segment is this area, where if you don't know how to control your air for the ramps or the moguls, you're going to have a hard time. So the second segment with mini moguls and ramps, like I said, like the last segment, is pretty much hard if you don't know how to control your air, otherwise it's pretty straightforward. Segment isn't too hard, it's pretty straightforward. It's the segment afterwards that starts getting hard. This segment is the hardest part, where you got some fixed snow, which can slow you down, and some Shy Guys that can hit you and slow you down, like I just got hit there, forcing me to use my star. Otherwise, apart from that, it's pretty much the end of the course, and it's pretty straightforward. So now, let's move on to number 9. Number 9. Grumble Volcano. The reason why this is on this list is because half of the track is pretty much gone by the final lap, as shown here. Alright, so let's get to the actual track. So, these first curves aren't too bad. So this first part here is where you have to take some corners, which could be sharp if you're using automatic steering or not using an inward drift bike. So next you come up to this area with moving platforms, which should be easy, but sometimes you might fall in. And then we get to the area where you have rocks falling down, and if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're probably going to get hit by one of these rocks. Then you have to take last corners, which could be sharp using automatic drifting, and then you're done. Number 8. Luigi Circuit. So you're probably wondering why a simple track, a simple circuit like Luigi Circuit is on this list. Well, that's because all of the item boxes are really close together, especially 150cc, so while you and the other players will be throwing items all around, littering the entire track, which kind of makes it hard. Of course, something like Bowser's Castle Free has more item boxes, but I'll be honest here. The only reason why I added this in on the list is so people don't complain that, like, oh, where's the Luigi Circuit, because it's a meme. I think. Oh, I don't know. I live on a rock, alright? Number 7. Wario's Goldmine. The first quote-unquote hard segment is this ramp, which can be a little finicky, especially when you're like wheeling like I'm doing here. These next 2 turns can be sharp with automatic drifting, but overall you should be fine if you're using like manual drifting. Next up, you run into these cave of bats, which can slow you down, followed by a possible sharp turn and a ramp, which once again are finicky. Next up, we got a segment of minecarts, which can be hard, but if you know the track, which is shown in blue, then you should be fine, really. And then you get to finish the course, which should be pretty easy. Alright, now to number 6. Number 6. Mushroom Gorge. First you come in with some corners, which is not bad, they're pretty easy. Then you come across the mushrooms. Now see here, the hardest part is the mushrooms. They can send you flying if you're not careful. Then you come across some more mushrooms, or you can take the other path, which is easier. Then you take some more corners, and then you probably get to the hardest part of the track, the multiple mushroom section. Here you're going to be flying quite a bit, and because the mushrooms aren't really the best, they might send you flying or do something weird to you. Otherwise, you have a couple more corners, and then you're pretty much done. So overall, Mushroom Gorge isn't that bad. Number 5. Nintendo 64 Sherbet Land, or Sherbet Land. So, this track is really hard pretty much all the way. Why? Because you have slippery ice, which can really misjudge your corners. Which also doesn't help because you're also doing 90-degree corners, and if you mess up, you're going to fall in the icy waters or hit a wall, because they're really icy and can slip you up. I mean, while it is better than the Nintendo 64 version, it's still really slippery. Otherwise, the only other harder segment is the penguin segment, which go in a pattern, and if you're not careful, then the penguins could hit you if they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, which doesn't help if you're going the narrow path. Overall, this really mostly hard just because of the ice corners, but if you had a mountain cruiser, you can just breeze through this. So overall, it's an okay course. It's the only retro track on this list. Number 4. Maple Treeway. So, the first corners aren't really too hard. It's really after the cannon where the actual hard part of Maple Treeway starts. So, taking the tight corners of this segment could make you mess up. Then we get this log section, which if you suck at drifting or have automatic drifting, you're gonna fall off, I don't know, 90% of the time. Then you get these wigglers, which can be in your way if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time. Then you have to take some more sharp corners, and the boost panels don't help. Then afterwards, it's pretty much a straightforward place with some obstacles that you might hit. And then you get to this net area where you have to do tricks off it, which isn't too hard unless you don't know how to trick. And overall, the course is pretty much over, apart from the branches, which may send you flying, because Mario Kart Wii physics. Number 3. Bowser's Castle or King Koopa's Castle. First segment, you get to this ramp, which isn't too hard. Then you get to this wobbly area, which if you don't know how to handle, you could run into a pole or the walls. Then you have to take 90-degree corners, which if you have automatic drifting, you'll have a hard time. Not to mention the flumps, which might get in your way. Then we got this area with Bowser breathing fire with also half ramps as well, which can make it a real hard challenge, especially if you're new to the game. Then we got this area, which is pretty much not hard unless you're doing the glitch. And then you get to this area where the lava geysers go up, but they're easy to avoid, so as these swamps up here, as you're taking this corner. Then you get this ramp where you might hit the fireballs, and then you have to take a 90-degree corner before the lava waterfalls, which are easy to avoid because they have a lot of space, and then the course is over. Number 2. Rainbow and Pretty Road or something like that. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Why is this not number 1? Well, I'll tell you. So even though this is kind of a hard course and you could probably fall off on any corner that you can, really though, once you get that down, it's not too hard really, and most of the obstacles are really already mentioned or just different versions of the obstacles already mentioned. So that's basically why it's not too high on this or not number 1. So now, this is out of the way, let's figure out what number 1 is. Number 1. Moonview Highway. First, you take these sharp corners, which once again, if you have automatic drifting, then you gonna suck. These are what the first corners are about. Then, you go across a bridge, which is pretty easy, and then you get to the tollway, which you have to dodge traffic. And the issue with this traffic, that for the most part, there is no pattern. While there is a pattern of traffic for time trials, in races, there is no pattern. It can be completely different every time, which makes it hard so you cannot predict the cars that are coming towards you and will hit you. Not to mention that it's pretty close, just like in Toad's Turnpike. Overall, this is probably the hardest course, and out of all these courses, I think this is the one I actually failed the most often, and probably have the worst record in terms of like everyone else. I don't know. So, thank you for watching my top 10. Do you agree with the list? I don't know. I might go read some of the comments. And it's probably going to be a good comment war down there. Can't wait for that. See y'all later on another day and another list.